sent to them of ancient times. Thou shalt not perjure thyself, but shalt perform to the Lord thine oath. But I say to you, swear not that I'll neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for his is footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. 2, 3.
Okay, I just realized this has a really long fade out here. Not that I want to listen to it, of course. It was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But we're not studying that today. We're going to study Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Let's get right into it and read through it. For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean, to him that sacrificeth and to him that sacrificeth not. As is the good, so is the sinner. And he that sweareth as he that sweareth an oath. Oh, feareth an oath, sorry. And he that sweareth as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. For him that is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished, neither have they any more portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. I returned, and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. For man also knoweth not his time, as the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare, so are the sons of men snared in an evil time, when it falleth suddenly upon them. This wisdom have I seen also under the sun, and it seemed great unto me. There was a little city, and few men within it. And there came a great king against it, and besieged it, and built great bulwarks against it. Now there was found in it... I'm reading too fast. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no man remembered that same poor man. Then said I, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of wise men are heard in quiet more than in the cry of him that ruleth among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. There's a lot of, it's a lot like Proverbs in some ways, except it's single authorship pretty much, I think. It does seem at times like, it gets a little like Proverbs where you start getting like axiomatic statements, especially in this latter part. But it is someone's collective wisdom. That's how I appreciate it. Because I don't know if there's if that's a big disputed thing. Sometimes people are like, oh, no, 15 hands wrote this. I don't know. And it's not important because whether it was that or that, it doesn't matter. It's still inspired, isn't it? Because there's so much truth in this. For all this, I consider in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. You know, what we just read says, basically, life is futile. When you're dead, you're not going to have anything to do with this again. You only get one shot. It is given to men once to die. And after that, the judgment. You never have another part in anything that goes on here. There's no life. There's no breath. There's no nothing. There's nothing that you knew about this life and what's to come. It's fundamentally different, even in the resurrection. And I know he's not really regarding that, but he sort of is. Because what is he saying? They're in the hand of God. He's saying, while in this life you cannot expect justice, because the evil is everyone dies. And sometimes, like I said, it's not like a long life and well spent and, I've enjoyed myself to the very end. No, not always. Not everyone lives a happy ending who should. And not everyone gets a bad ending who should. And sometimes that just gets right reversed. But the thing is, what he takes comfort in is, well, they all die in the end. So they all receive a penny. There's some fairness in that. But also it leaves you thinking like, what's the point of even trying? And that's why some men don't try, because it's like, well, it doesn't seem to matter. But he has trust that it does matter. And it is wise to trust that it is matter. The wise and their works, whether this is anything worth doing, is in the hand of God. That's why I commend all my children in the hand of God, because ultimately I can't protect them, not against death that is inevitable. I can try to protect them against an early death when they're little, and I could try to prepare them from being foolish or making mistakes. It's not always foolishness. Sometimes it's just men make mistakes, and their lives are cut short. Or other men make mistakes and you get killed because of it, and that's awful. It happens. All things, there's, chance, time and chance happeneth to all. And you said it. I mean, we could almost just read this chapter and move on, right? But we're going to comment on it. But that's so true of life. We do not get to choose how it ends up. Even if we do everything right, it can turn out terrible. And even if we do everything wrong, it can turn out, quote unquote, wonderful or seemingly so. Like I said, I don't think they truly have happiness, but they seem to have that which men seek after. Ease. They're eating the fruit of their labor or the fruit of other people's labor, which for some people is even sweeter. For me, it's disgusting. I despise having to be reliant on other people. It's something I do not like to do, even though at times I've had to bite the bullet and do it. Sometimes you have to let people help you. It's something I exhibited from a very young age. When I was a very small child, there's some old Super 8 video, not video, Super 8 film of me. Film. It's on film. I actually do have it on electronic video, but it's not on a video cassette anymore. And I should get that video somewhere. I should find it. And my sister's trying to help me open a Christmas present. I'm like opening it, and I just start hitting her. I don't know why I was so angry. There could be. I know they like to tease me and make me angry. They used to say, "Make that angry face, Paul." And whatever. Sometimes people think the way, to torture little babies is kind of funny. As far as to do things to make them show emotion. And, oh, look at, isn't it cute? He's crying. Oh, yes. Thank you, Mom. All things come alike to all. But either, no man knoweth either love. This is important. I almost skipped this. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. Meaning, the way your life goes does not mean God loves or hates you. Ultimately. It doesn't. The way it happens may mean that. You know what I mean? But just because like Job, a righteous man suffered the loss of all things. But that doesn't mean God hated him. Even though he was experiencing what ought to happen to wicked men. And the same thing, just because a wicked man experiences what ought to happen to a righteous man, that doesn't mean that God loves him. Because wealth can be a curse. It is harder for a man to pass through the eye of a needle than to enter, for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter to God's kingdom. Because the riches so indelibly tie you to this world, you can't disconnect yourself from it and enter into that spiritual realm, because everything is about carnal. And it's a distraction. And it becomes a burden too, because if you know anything about the scriptures, like in a sense, if I was really wealthy, that would mean I had all this power to do good. And God would expect me to do good with it. You saw what he said to people who had much possessions, that they should sell it all. I have few possessions, and if I find myself like, okay, I have to ready my heart, possibly leave it behind, I mean, when I think of my possessions, first thing I think of is my music. And I'm like, I have to trust that is in the hand of God. That they can delete my music, they can erase my music, they can try to erase me. They can do all those things. They can take me down, cut me down, try to take it away. Try to make sure nobody could ever hear it again. I would trust my fans to make sure that can't happen. It's too far gone. It's too late. So, because sometimes I've thought that. It's like, I write these songs that anger the government, and they come and just confiscate everything. Even though, whatever. I'm not too worried about that. I'm not too worried about it. One, I know they're safe in heaven, and also I know they're safe. Okay? I'm not a fool. I've dealt with the government. You always get certified receipts and do other things, Other things that are intelligent. Behave intelligently, wisely, shrewdly. And we have to trust that the things we've done, that doing the right thing is in the hands of God, and that we're going to suffer the same fate as the wicked in this life. It's inevitable. And while that is an evil, we tolerate, and we some ways we don't understand. That's what Psalm is saying. It's the evil in the world. I don't get it. I just have to believe that all this is in God's hands, and that is something I want to tell people about. That they need to just trust that you don't know if God loves you or hates you based on what you see in front of you. It's not obviously true. You can't infer from the material world the immaterial necessarily. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, but you can't just take it as an object lesson. Like the idea of karma does not work perfectly, not in this life. That's why I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to go into it and give it a critique, because all I know is that what goes around comes around. We have the same thing in scriptures. You sow what you reap. That can only be true in a cosmic sense through there being a judgment at the end of time. Now, that doesn't mean we should throw our hands up and say, who cares? No, it matters. Because if we do that, we become guilty of the things they do. And I don't want to be built. That's what's the problem with Christianity. They're guilty of it. They indulge in all the same sins as the wicked and say that they say they trust in Jesus, that they should be delivered from. And this hypocrisy is not something this is precisely tempting Christ. It's okay. You can make mistakes, have sins you're working on, matters of conscience that you're wrestling with, errors in tongue. We know we make mistakes. The Lord is faithful and just to forgive our sins. I never doubt that. But I also never doubt that I am his son. And therefore, I would hate to disappoint my father. I would hate to disappoint my brother. If indeed Christ will call me such, our friends, grant to sit with him in his throne, in his place. I'd call it absurd if it was, but it's really awesome in the sense of that word should inspire. It should inspire awe in people and fear. In the sense of wait a second, I'm not living up to that. How can I live up to that? Yes, you can live up to that. Don't you believe it? Don't you disbelieve that for a second? Yes, you can aspire to be just like Jesus. Don't ever let anyone tell you can't. I mean, I can't be just like him, you know what I mean? But ultimately, I can achieve it where I am living as he would have me live, in perfect obedience. In the world, in this world, well, maybe right before I die. Why not? The thief on the cross surely did. There's room for forgiveness. I never see the scripture make room for sin. You're supposed to be casting all that out. There's no room for sin in God's kingdom. Because it's about perfection. It's about coming to full fruition, to completeness, which is the definition of perfection. To be complete in him, to be fully grown up, to that image of Christ be formed in you. That is the whole goal of being a Christian, is to be a little Christ. Except little Christ is actually insulting. I'm not a Christian, I'm a Christ. Or that's what I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be, imitating him, embodying him, internally creating this image of him by the repetition of his teachings in my mind. If a man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come unto him and make our mansion with him. It is always about when his word dwells in us. How do you get the word to dwell in you? Well, I can just rattle things off because it dwells in me. When it dwells in you, you know who he is, and you're able to judge things more, judge with his judgment, not my judgment, but the righteous judgment of God. Judging not after the outward appearance, but by that which is right. And you don't know what, that's why we don't condemn people. Because you don't know love or hatred by what you're looking at. Just like the Apostle Paul. Oh, God must hate him. Look at, he's holding the coats of those that are stoning the righteous man Stephen. You know, righteous Stephen being stoned, Paul's holding the coat, and he was approving of what would happen. He was approving of that murder. And he went out breathing threatenings and slaughter against Christians. And so you'd think, God must hate this guy. Because look, he's not revealing the truth. Oops. He suddenly did reveal the truth to him. So you don't know what you're looking at till everything's finished, you know? Because we can't judge by just what appears, what we see, by the outward appearance of things. Because we constantly have to start by judging ourselves inwardly. And that way, getting the beams out of our eyes, we see clearly. And then we can help others, prospectively. That's the idea, to get to the point where you are like him, and therefore guiding others. I practice that, first of all, through my own children. That's why a man who has raised his own children in subjection is worthy of other responsibilities. Not that people who don't raise children can't be worthy of responsibilities, but they don't have that on their resume. They can't use, it's like if I hadn't had a job you had, someone had a job where they did something that was pertinent to this next job, it's like, well, I just don't have that experience, but I may have some other experience that also qualifies me in a different way. So we can obtain this wisdom through other means, but it is always more difficult. You have to use more, you have to think about it more. So all things come alike to all. In the end, at least as far as under the sun. On the earth, this is how it works. He was wise, he understood. He did not have the revelation of the perfect thing. He had an inkling, though. That's why I said this is all about the inkling. It's in the hand of God, and you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. There's one event to the righteous, and the same event happens to both. We're all dying. And that's just like, to the clean and the unclean, to him that sacrificeth not. It doesn't matter if you participate in religion. It doesn't matter if you're clean or unclean. We got to stay clean. We all die. Being unclean in the literal sense can result in an earlier death because of infection and things like that. That's why, I don't know if that's why they were told not to touch dead bodies, but it could be through, ancient taboos are often developed from understanding. It's like, hey, you notice after people come into contact with dead, that they often come away with sicknesses and stuff, that you should keep the dead at a distance, bury the dead. That's obviously a very ancient human custom that is not based on nothing. It's based on a collective racial memory, and by racial I mean human race, and that's why we treat our dead with that. You respect them, but you also keep them at a distance. At least in most places, wherever they don't do that, like in those societies where they go digging up bodies, bad things happen. They get brain diseases and stuff like that. There was one place where the women were not allowed to eat the meat, and they were desperate for food, and they went and they dug up dead bodies, and they were eating the flesh, and they were having these brain disorders and stuff because you cannot eat human flesh. It's not good for you. It's a terrible thing, It's like things. Should we even speak of such things? I know people have often done it to survive on a short-term basis. Let your conscience be your guide. But it's definitely not a long-term solution to anything. I don't know why I'm talking about it. Because it happens, that's why. And I don't judge it. I don't, because it's like, hey, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. When you're frozen I think of those people in the airplane crash. It's like, it's not about, murdering people and eating them is a sin, okay? A terrible, evil thing. It's, that's why I'm saying it's like that. But other times it's like, I'm not here to judge that. I certainly am not going to condemn people who go through some sort of harrowing mountaintop. I don't go to the mountaintops if I can avoid it. This mountain I am upon is all the mountain I care for. And I call it a mountain. It's just a big old hill. Climb Mount Stringini, yes. This is an evil among all the things that are done under the sun. Oh, I like it. Sweareth or feareth an oath. It's the good, the sinner. No, so there is a good and there's a sinner. How can that possibly be? Didn't he just say in the last chapter, there is not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not? This is where you gotta use your brain and wisdom. There are people who are, like I said, on balance, just. Now, where people get off is they think like, well, that means they're saved. Maybe so. If the Lord judges it as so. I believe the white throne, that's how it works. He's going to judge you. And to say that there'll be no mercy, no, Jesus never says he judges like that. Those who show mercy will receive mercy. So the idea that I've heard preachers say, I don't think it's possible to be saved there, because they love the technicality. They want people just to join the brand. And they don't want to ever let anyone off the hook of, no, you got to believe in Jesus. I used to be afraid to tell people who didn't believe in Jesus that, like, I did think it was possible they could be judged by God, worthy of his kingdom. With some, obviously he'd have to transform them in some way, and God has the power to do such things. But whatever, some people would say that's you can't say that. And I'm like, why is that white throne judgment there? And what's it talking about? It's books and stuff. Even dispensationalists actually, well, they think that that's probably true, that they could get judged by the law there. But the thing is, the New Testament understanding that you have to be perfect is not how it was in the Old Testament. Perfection was not, they were called to it just like us, and certainly, but they had sacrifices and offerings because people aren't perfect, But whether you sacrifice or not, whether you're good or not, same thing happens to all. So these are people who are on balance good, like the good people maybe they are doing something evil in secret. Hopefully not. A lot of them aren't. I've met a lot of good people. Well, I would think, I know they would probably say, I'm not good. I'm not good. I like to have a couple of drinks before bed. And sometimes I lose my temper. And, sometimes when really pretty girls turn my head, I'm not a good person. But on balance, when you consider the awful sin in the world, it's not good to compare yourself with other people. I don't compare myself. That's why I worry about the mote in my eye, the beam in my eye, because it may be a mote to others, but I consider it a beam, because it's me. When I can't see clearly, I can't help anybody. So some people are given over to sin. A Christian is not given over to sin. A Christian is someone who has come to Jesus for forgiveness, has turned over their lives to him, believes in him, and is renounced that life of sin. And even though you may still have sins and iniquity, things that are in your life, there's forgiveness there, but we are not allowed to give it the victory. Otherwise, then we're not really his, because we are the victorious ones. We are the overcomers. Now, sometimes things take a long time. I'm glad the Lord made me suffer through sins over long periods of time, so I wouldn't go around judging people who also struggle over a long period of time. You'd say, well, if you really believed in God, you'd stop immediately. I'd say, yes, Lord, so help my unbelief. Because if I feared you more, I probably would. Because here's the thing. I don't need to believe in God to not go out and be a rapist. I don't need God to not do that. That's not my personality. I don't need to fear God, okay? I don't even need to fear God to not be a drinker, because I fear what that drink will do to me. I'm not worried. God doesn't even, that's a matter of conscience. There's some level of that is probably acceptable. I know my dad, he was not abstinent of alcohol. I never once saw him drunk, but anytime there was a party, he would be sipping a drink and he'd have like one. And that's no sin in my book. You call that a sin, I call you a liar. Not liar, but wrong, I said, no, you sir are wrong. No, sir. That's a matter of conscience. You don't have the right to judge him on that. Now, if someone you see is producing fruit of where it's negative consequences, you can say, sir, that might be a sin to you. Or I say that to myself if I see myself doing such things. That might be a sin to me. But that does not, but anyways, as you're working through and righting the wrongs in yourself and removing the obstructions from your vision, which are our sins are always an obstruction to having clear vision. It is. It's always, because you will always be in doubt. As long as you have that. If I really believed, yes. Here's the thing. There's some point at which I believe in God. And I fear him so I tell the truth. If I didn't believe in God, there's a point at which my life would be threatened. And I think I might be afraid to tell the truth. I don't know about that. I don't even know if I need to believe in God for that. Because I might just do it for my children and for my grandchildren. I might be willing to lay down my life for the truth's sake for them. Because I know these people, I care about them, I want them to have a good future. So there's that. So I don't, but like, do I fear God enough, to never ever speak an idle word, or ever behave selfishly, or well, no, I don't have this. It's not like I'm not able to perceive him. I try to do this as much as I can to perceive his constant presence. Because he does not impose himself in a way that you can feel at all times. Though when I received the Holy Spirit, he did. For that moment in time, I could feel God. And whatever, you don't have to believe that, doesn't matter. You can think of it, whatever you want. For me, it was something different. And it wasn't like, just like, it wasn't some feeling. It was like, what's going on? Why are my hands pulsating with power? Whatever, for what it's worth. It could still be me unlocking human potential. I will take that. Or aliens, I'll take that. Or some sort of government, something, I'll take that too as a potential alternate explanation, even though I believe it was God. He that swears versus he that swears an oath. Feareth an oath. Again, I said it wrong. Swear not at all. And you should avoid swearing. Jesus taught. It's already in there that it's possible to avoid swearing. In fact, Solomon was warning. Hey, don't be careful when you utter things before God. You say you're going to do something, you should do it. Same thing with, yes, it goes to the human, to civilization and society as well. You shouldn't shoot off your mouth and not follow through. It goes down to your children. You don't tell your children. I always tell people, look it. I never tell my children I'm going to do something as far as a punishment that I'm not willing to do. So they never heard me I'll wring your neck or I'll break your... to me, it's all it renders me impotent. There's all these things I want to do, but I can't. Which I would never, of course, wring my child's neck. I have wrung another human's neck. I'm not proud of that. There you go. There's one of my sins. Long ago. I didn't kill him or anything, but I wanted to in that moment. I did. Because he said something extremely rude. In a very rude way, he told me to perform a certain kind of act upon him in a way that was, because he was basically giving me the middle finger and telling me that, which I didn't appreciate. And in my hot-headed way of my youth, I sprung upon him with both hands firmly pressed about his neck. So, I can be given to violence. At least in the past, I become much more patient. I was, 19 years old. I'm a little bit more grown up now. It's been a long time since I've grabbed anybody about the throat. Well, if you don't count grappling, I've strangled many people, okay? But they were in it for the game. It's a game. It's a sport. That's where you can do those things. It's good to exercise the strength and to stress the body and to get into those physical confrontations, especially for young boys, because it helps develop them into strong men who understand the limits and you understand how physical fights can go. And you learn to be polite with each other and to learn to respect one another. I always respect other men. I try to show them respect, especially because you never know how tough a guy is, even if he's a little guy, Women, you got to be afraid of them because they're crazy. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm half kidding. I'm half kidding. Men are just different. They're crazy. Their way of craziness is a little more scary in a certain sense. Women is more normal. It happens more frequently. Men, when they go nuts, they break things and kill people. Women, they just cause arguments. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be ragging on the ladies. Solomon, it must be the spirit of Solomon because he had trouble with the ladies. Difficulty. Okay, so there's one event and all. That's the evil. There's also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, again, because the punishment doesn't come immediately. And this is part of, I think, what God intends. This is why he hides himself. This is why he does not he wants me to barely believe. He doesn't want me to know for sure he's there. He wants me to be willing to do these things not just because I believe in him, but because I believe in him because he's right. Not just because he's the biggest badass in the universe, but because the biggest badass in the universe wants us to do things which are right. And if we don't, there's going to be hell to pay. And I mean that metaphorically, and literally in a certain sense, but I don't believe in the hell that the mainstream Christianity teaches. I believe in annihilationism. I'll shorthand it for you. Because you either have a second death or you have eternal torment. They're a juxtaposition with each other. It's a Rorschach test. Which do you see? Which one is spiritual? Which one's literal? So death is spiritual. Oh, death is spiritual. It's a metaphor. Eternal torment, that's literal. So, interesting choice. Because there is a choice to make. Don't deny it. And you can deny it all you like, but I won't have it. You're making choices when you interpret. You can make the Bible say virtually anything you want if you're unscrupulous. As they do. It causes me endless problems when just trying to talk to people about the Bible. They think the Bible's a nonsense book, which I get, since they can make it say whatever they want. You puppeteer the thing long enough, people think it's a bunch of garbage. Taking things out of context and saying, is that what it says? The angel's going to bear you up in their wings? Just believe in Jesus and be saved? Oh, what craziness. You can just do whatever you want. Throw yourself off buildings, drink poison, pick up snakes. Poisonous ones. Pick them up. Throw them around. Get bit. Who cares? You won't. Nothing will happen. Throw yourself in the fire. I mean, don't you believe? Don't you believe the Bible? Don't you trust the Bible? Didn't you hear about the 3 Hebrew children that went in the fiery furnace? Jump in. Jump in the fire. Go on. Jump in the fire. Show Jesus how much you believe in him. I'm being sarcastic, okay? If I have to tell anyone that, then I've told you. I was being sarcastic. I didn't mean any of that. Because it's so, you say something that potent, I wouldn't want anyone to actually act on it. I presume that no one listening this far into this Bible study is an absolute fool. Okay, the living know that they shall die. Oh, wait, we went too far. For to him that is joined to the living, there is hope. Oh, wait, there is evil. Madness is in their heart while they live. After they go, there is a sort of madness that takes men. They seek after riches. There's all kinds of responses to life. There's all kinds of ways you can respond to this life. It's an interesting mystery. To me, to not look into that mystery or be curious about it, and to look into the books laying around that seem to say clues about the way to escape this escape room. Because that's one of my theories. Not that it is an escape room, but it's like escape room. The Bible is your clue, you American Christian. What about people on the other side of the world? You let them worry about themselves. I mean, you worry, but let me tell you, you worry about carrying forth the gospel faithfully. And then the Lord himself will take care of those people on the other side of the world. It's like our job is to save, not to kill. Anyway, so there's one event unto all. The hearts of the Son of Man is full of evil. Because they look at and they say there's no justice in the world, so why not just grab whatever you can? You think about ancient times, the way things were, like the Mongols come marching across Eurasia and just murdering everybody who doesn't surrender. Not just the king, he murders the whole population. All your people die because your leaders didn't surrender. Even the little kids. I mean, that's pretty brutal. And not just pretty brutal, that's unthinkable. That's so awful. That's just like, that's the madness that takes people when they have power in this world. They say, I can kill everybody. Watch me. Oh, you don't want to surrender to me? Let me show you what happens to people who don't surrender to my will. I and none else. They become gods. They start acting like God, thinking they can just decide who deserves to live and die. Who deserves to live and die? Whoever doesn't do what I say. I said, when you have a wicked person on the earth saying that, it's scary. But for some, it ought to be scary to consider that a righteous man, a righteous daddy in the sky, as they love to mock, he's not a man anyways, a righteous being, a righteous mind at the source of all things, beckoning you towards righteousness quietly, in a still small voice that says, this is the way, walk ye in it. Those of you who hear, many don't hear. All they hear is the crackling of the laughter of fools as they go after their money and whores and riotous living, rich eating, and such. thinking that somehow the joy is going to be found in all those things. I mean, a wife, like he says, he tells you to enjoy. Later on, I think it becomes even more graphic about it. I'm not going to try to look up that part. Like by going, seeking it out, whatever, because if it's not in here, it's not in here. I forget. All the days of your vanity, enjoy that wife. It can be a good thing. It's one of the nice things about life. Just like, having good stuff and being able to enjoy it. Having a nice wife and being able to enjoy her. It takes a lot, though. It takes a good relationship. If you don't like the actual person, the other end doesn't work out so good, in my opinion. That's why I say to people, I remember people talking about, I heard Bill Maher, the famous comedian. I have to say that because my wife would have no idea who this guy is. It's funny. And it's funny because he thinks everybody knows who I am. No, not everybody. My wife don't know who you are. Okay? She's a pretty important person too, so. Anyways, so he was saying, because he likes to have sex with prostitutes and likes new ladies. I just say it was boring to the same person over again. That could be so if you have a boring person and if you're boring. But I always say, until you've lived with someone 30 years, you have no idea how much you can love someone. Especially if you live together 30 years and you go through a lot of things together. Because I thought I loved her when I married her. Hardly. It was still mostly infatuation, even though I chose her for good reasons. But as far as a lot of my love and affection was based on the fact that she was a pretty young girl and I liked her, outwardly, which was funny because for her it was a sense of insecurity, but whatever. That's all come to an end over time. Her insecurity went away and my wandering eyes became more focused. And for the good of both of us. And so a woman, for her part, may feel a lot more enjoyment from enjoying themselves with a partner they've been with for a very, very long time. Because of the sense of trust, the sense of knowing each other, the sense of intimacy, which they value more than we do, men. But also the value of their knowing you for so long and understanding all the things that one might do to enhance your enjoyment of your life together. Let's say it in that most euphemistic way. All those things make you happy in every single way, not just in the bedroom, but also throughout every aspect of life, being a true helpmeet. Because a woman should be a helper for a man, and because a woman always is, whether she likes it or not, seeking a man that she looks up to. Very few women are looking for a guy she can boss, is going to be look down on him and boss around. She will despise such a man. She certainly isn't going to love that man. I mean, she may want a man such as that, but then she's got a sort of disturbed mindset of I want someone I can crush and despise. It's an acting out of some sort of hatred, which I don't understand. But if you act out love, you get a different result, and it goes well. The true thing, though, is that even that all, while you're here, it's good to enjoy it, but it all comes to an end. While you're enjoying the living, there's hope. There's expectation of tomorrow. That's not about hope of resurrection, per se. Hope that tomorrow I could do better. Hope that this, hope that that. It's like I still got possibility for the future. I still have an expectation that, I can, whatever. There's another thing. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. Even if I am in a bad situation right now, this is what suicidal people need to know. As dark as things look right now, you have to understand, you're just in a moment that is passing. And as time goes on, things are going to be different. I've gone through things with my wife and I remember telling her that. It's like, look, I know we've been in this bad situation for 5 years, but in 5 years from now, it's going to be like it was barely a memory. And 10 years from now, you'll be like, that didn't even happen. It's like it didn't happen almost, or whatever. Things fade. Certainly the pain, and then when your life is better, you're glad that you held on to life and went and just underwent that difficult time, as difficult as it was, because now you can live life once again in joy and in happiness, even if you had some dark times. And, Like a friend, a neighbor of mine who's passed away said it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. That all life's problems are temporary. Most of them, I should say. Most of them. Sometimes people have degenerative diseases that don't go away, And I don't think suicide is wrong at all times. I mean, if you look, Jesus' death was almost, he walked into it. Now, of course, he didn't put his hands on himself. That is generally wrong. I think it's possible for someone to innocently kill themselves. I even heard a story of a child, and I'm like, that doesn't. The people that were guilty of his death were the adults around him, not the child. That faith hath made thee whole. I don't want to go into detail about someone's personal experience. But anyways, for him that is joined to living, there's hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. While you're alive, tomorrow there's still another day. Even if you've lived the best life and you're the king of the world, once you're dead, a guy who's down on his luck is actually better off than you. The day you die, all of a sudden, the lowest, the kid on the streets of New Delhi, the orphan growing up on the streets of New Delhi is better off than you. Because somewhere down the line, that orphan growing up, he may wind up in a palace somewhere or whatever. Who knows? Not that I don't assume that's necessarily good for him, but he might wind up with a wife and kids and a solid life his own, doing the right thing and making the world a better place in a way that pleases God and results in his becoming the inheritor of everlasting life, if the Lord judges it so. It's better to be alive in the sense of compared to a corpse, quite simply. Death is not as good as life. Now, that's interesting because it kind of better to never have been born. Yeah, his point is just like, hey, but because the lion, he would say, is like, well, he's gone through life. He's gone through life. He's had all his experiences. It might have taken a lot to become a lion, in a metaphorical sense. Because I wrote a song about my growing up one ball man, but I talk about, the challenges of being like, hey, I got to be a man someday, and I'm just a skinny little kid. And I go through a lot, and I become those things. I become a man. I have a family. I raise my family. People invest me with even more responsibilities, and I become a greater man, and whatever. And I become bigger in that sense. I don't mean that whatever. By doing more. That's the goal. You want to be great? Well, serve. You got to serve more. You have to have more responsibilities. To him that is given much, they will ask the more. What do you expect? What do you want? Do you want to rise in the kingdom, or do you want to just be whatever? Just be in the kingdom. That's going to be just enough. Hey, the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than someone who's not. The living know that they shall die, but the dead don't know anything. That's what it's like to be dead. You don't know anything. Again, that's because death is real. There is such a thing as death. Death is a state that is much like being under anesthesia. You don't have dreams. You don't know anything. You don't have any more of a reward. Not in this world. You don't, for all the things you did in life, the carnality, there's no more enjoying your food. There's no more enjoying your wife. There's no more enjoying because literally all those things, enjoying your wife, the kingdom of heaven doesn't have that for you. It's not there. The rewards of this life as such, are not the rewards of God's kingdom. Because those are different. And that's what I would assert. I don't know if that's absolutely right here, but that's why I feel like it. That's why I'd like to approach it. Because I could say, well, what about the judgment and all that? Isn't there a reward there? Yes. But it's about the rewards that we have known. He's not talking about rewards that we don't know about. That would be speculation on his part. He just knows that, hey, your works are with God. Trust that. Hopefully it'll all work out in the end. But as far as he knows, you die and then there's nothing more. Because that's what death is. When people die, they don't come back. In all of history, other than until Jesus came around, there were legends and stories about gods resurrecting. People will point that out, sure. And there are also legends of prophets raising the dead, sure. But that someone should rise from the dead and ascend into heaven and sit down at the right hand of God, that kind of ascension, of course, instead of legend, yes, but of a man in history, there's but one. At least one claim. Because none of those other characters, like Osiris rising again, or they say, or in the legends of these are just, to me, that's just evidence of the fact that the truth of God is in some ways accessible to man through nature, and they suss it out, but not perfectly. They see through a glass even more darkly than I do. That doesn't mean I shouldn't still concern myself about the darkness here. And I don't like to look down. I don't want to be high-minded and look at other people as not being as intelligent as me or as wise. I just want to take, even from someone who may appear to be a fool, that there's some wisdom I can learn from them. I remember in particular one time I was at a church, and the pastor's wife berated me and insulted me over my clothing because I came in a cotton. You can see exactly what I was dressed in. I was wearing a button-down cotton shirt with a collar. A pair of cotton slacks, not blue jeans. I did have my nicest work boots, which were fairly new at that time. They're like Caterpillar. They cost me $200. I didn't have nicer shoes, and I wasn't accustomed to wearing anything like that would hurt my feet. I did have dress shoes, but I didn't have a tie on. In that church, everyone came to church all dressed up in suits and stuff there. I feel like when I start my church, which I will do in the future here, I'm already beginning rehearsals for my band, my church band. I feel like I put a sign outside: no suits allowed. No suits. You cannot come in here with a suit. Because now you can, of course, but it's sort of like that's not the vibe I'm going for, and I don't, But anyways, I just took it. Instead of being completely offended, which it was somewhat. I remember feeling like, boy, wow, she's really doing this. She's really despising me because of my clothing, because I'm not wearing expensive clothing and nicer clothes. And the pastor I could tell he was so uncomfortable because he knew this was like, she was like that way. She just liked to brag in front of the whole church about all the good she was doing. And it was just very disgusting, honestly. I'm like, boy, she's just burning her rewards left and right. You come here dressed like that? You think you're going to preach here? You'll never come back again. It's like really nasty. I run things here. Okay, lady. I don't care. I'm not coming back. Fine. I'm not here to impose myself on people. That's why I'm not going to church anymore. I'm going to make my own. And I won't be its pastor. Pastor is something somebody else can do there and underneath me. I'm not fond of pastors. I have a big contention with you pastors. Okay, you got to answer. All their love and their hatred, their envy has now perished. From the rest of history. Name me a figure in it. I mean, absolutely? No, it doesn't always mean absolutely. It's just a generalization. Like, look at Hitler. Okay, some people are still Nazis, right? Some people still follow the Ku Klux Klan and whoever founded that. I mean, people still, and people still listen to other people, their works and the books and stuff, right? But you know what? You go back far enough in history and people have forgotten things. And for the most part, a lot of people don't know what the ancients had to say. It becomes more and more forgotten. And then when civilization collapses, or if and when it does, it's possible for all that knowledge to be lost again. Just like for years, no one thought the ancients were capable of making like geared machinery. I mean in the Roman times, the Greek times. They didn't think that they could make complex, geared, clock-like astronomical devices that could predict the motion of the planets and the stars and stuff, and the moon and eclipses. This complicated, many-toothed, geared thing that like laid all of it out. The Antikythera device, or Antikythera, might be more phonetic, with a Y for the kith. But they didn't think such a thing was possible. Because the knowledge that they had used to done that, or wherever it was written, how such things were made, or records, were lost. And the works of some engineer almost completely lost to history. Some amazing engineering done, around the first century that we never dreamed they were capable of back in the classical period. But they were. And what about other things? What about more things? Yes, there's more lost. Things were lost in the Library of Alexandria and other libraries that were burned. Ancient libraries of ancient writings copies of things, texts of old oral traditions from different peoples who are now gone and extinct and forgotten. And all that stuff is lost. Same thing can happen to everything we've built. Don't think about all the stuff that's on computers. Think about how electricity would render all that stuff as if it didn't exist. People have talked about this as a dark age. Then in the future, all the things done during this time will be invisible. No one will know what we had been doing and up to, because they'll just have these black boxes that they can't turn on. And they don't know how to open. They'll be like, what are these things? They'll look inside and they'll rust away. And the memory cards will all just sit there unusable. And we didn't carve our greatest works in stone. We didn't. We put them in little electronic impulses, and they're all ready to be wiped out. And the memory of us forgotten. Don't you doubt it. It's totally possible. And this would all become a legend. It may all become a legend. People will live on, but civilizations come and go. And that is just a fact of history. We did not escape that. Americans thought we escaped. Maybe we could have with competent leader and benevolent leadership, but we don't have competent, benevolent leadership. We have incompetent, greedy, foolish leadership. Unfortunately. Okay, yeah. This life, forever. You only get one shot at this life. You don't get to come back and try it again. I don't believe in that. I remember in my old church we had this teaching about the millennium that Arnold Murray used to teach that all the dead would come back to be taught in the millennium. Nope. No second chance. However you react to this is what you're going to be judged on. A lot of people, look at what Jesus said about how he's going to judge things. He's going to be a very just and merciful judge, especially for people who suffered, especially for people who had mercy on suffering. The things he cares about. People who did good, who loved much, will be forgiven much. A love covers a multitude of sins. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart. Because it's true, if you go out and love in the name of Jesus, it makes him very happy to overlook all your sins. When we do his will, it makes him very pleased to overlook everything you ever did. Because you believe in him. And if you believe in him, you will do what he says. And if you won't, I deny you. I say then you do not believe in him. You believe in some sort of mythical fantasy fairy tale about Jesus. You do not believe in the teachings of Jesus or in the man who I know very familiarly because I have studied his writings, or not his writings, what his disciples said he taught for many, many, many years. I've also been a studier of Paul, and Paul agrees on all these matters. It's very clear. Go listen to my teaching on Galatians. I just did it. It's very clear to me that Paul was not in Galatians teaching you to be disobedient to the gospel. God forbid. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart. And he says, hey, you want to have a little wine? Well, enjoy yourself. Especially if you have no conscience of it. Don't get drunk. He didn't say that. It doesn't take a lot of wine to make merry, but it's a hazardous thing. See, I tried that at one point. I had been sober for like 10 years. And then I thought, a little wine for the good of your stomach. And people were saying, like, wine can be good for your heart. And I've always been concerned about my heart and avoiding heart disease. Because it's in my father and grandfather both had heart attacks in their 60s, and I'm 51. And so I'm trying to avoid having a heart attack in my 60s. Or a stroke. Or anything like that. So I want my arteries all cleaned out. So I hear about this wine thing. I've heard about it for years, and I think, hey, I've shown myself faithful. I had been sober for years, but like I'd go to a baseball game with some family members and I'd have one of those hard lemonades, just a single serving, not a big one. Not one of those big cans with where it's 9%, but like the little one. Didn't feel a thing. Just like my good old dad, didn't feel a thing. I go to a party and drink a single beer, and have it. Just hold it and sip it and be cool like my dad. And so I decided, well, I can have a glass of wine every night. I have one glass of wine every night. And for months, that's all I had. And slowly that jug of wine would just slowly deplete. I'd buy a huge jug of wine, real cheap. Just have a little glass of wine. It was actually more like I drink it out of a glass that you drink brandy out of. So it's not even really a glass of wine. It's like a half a glass of wine. So and I'm 230 pounds at the time, a little lighter than I am now, and it does not touch me. It doesn't touch me at all. I'm just enjoying it. It seems like medicine. One night I decided to have a second glass. And then suddenly I'm having a second glass every night. And then pretty soon, one night, all of a sudden, it's a lot more glasses. It's a slippery slope. You gotta be careful. And that led me to several years of pain. Didn't like it. So, that's a question. We got to decide. I said, there's things I would do in spite of whether God's real or not. I do the right thing. With some people, if they feared him, they'd do the right thing. That's what I was getting at before. They don't fear him, so they don't do the right thing. And in some ways, in spite of the fact that we warn them, they say, it's like, if God would enlighten them, they would probably believe. I mean, they would probably do right if they actually believed it was true, if that hidden wisdom was revealed to them, but it's not. And the purpose of that is to allow them to do what they really want to do. Because some people are evil. Some people have a lot that I don't know where it comes from sometimes. The thing is, one of my, I'll call him one of my favorite apologists. I don't really, whatever. That's fine. I don't listen to him or follow him very often, but I listen to a couple of his videos. I think he has a lot of good things to say. David Wood. And he is a self-proclaimed psychopath who tried to murder his father when he was a young man. But, he turned that psychopathy into being a really good apologist for Jesus. So I would take issue with him on a few things. I'd like to even. I'd even like to debate him on a few things. It would be a short debate because I personally, it's not like I want to have this long argument. I just have an argument to present and then hear what he had to say. Because I think I'm right. I don't think there's anything really to debate about. It's just an angle that he's never thought about. All right. Well, anyways. But the reason I brought that up is like people can be psychopaths and turn to the Lord. Just because someone's born with a particular mind doesn't make them evil, but it's what you do with what you have. So I don't know. In the Lord, he doesn't owe any of us to interfere and make us see. That's why, look, God doesn't owe, but the fact that he does makes it seem unfair, which it is. But it's not unfairness so much as it is generosity, and that's God's perspective. That's the parable of the workers' wages from Matthew 20. That it is us who have the evil eye, and that God sees himself as he's just being good to people who don't deserve it. That's why the judgment goes the way it does, because it's like you don't have to be perfect at the white throne. Now, if you come to Jesus, the judgment seat of Christ, you do have to be perfect. You do show up there perfect. How else? The blood of Jesus upon you. Of course you show up there perfect. Also in your flesh, of course, yes, because I just received the resurrection. I am perfect in the flesh also. It's the moment of perfection when I meet Jesus as a resurrected, first resurrection Christian. Second death has no power on me. I am done. I'm finished. Here I am. I'm going to sit down with him in his throne. That's the end of the ride. I mean, not the total end of the ride, but this part of the ride, yeah. And they're full of evil, madness in their heart, but then they all die. We talked about the hope and the living. We know that we will die. The dead don't know anything. Neither have they any reward. The memory of them is forgotten, by and large. Okay. Like I said, if you try to take some things in the Bible as axiomatic, it's not like every person doesn't get instantly forgotten when they die. That's not what it means. You know what I mean? But you could read it like that if you want to. They have no more reward. That means God does not reward any good or bad. And the memory of them is forgotten. Nobody remembers they exist. Nobody. It's like, of course, that's not what it means. Also, their love, hatred, envy is now perished. Neither have they any moral portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Because it's about this life. Their life is over. Their envy, their hatred, it's all gone. They don't get to express that anymore. Now they will answer for it at God's throne, or so he hopes, so I believe. But that's such as it is. They must appear. Now I like to go to judgment with my eyes open. I come to Christ with my sins going before me. So that when I get there, it's all taken care of. And my eyes open. Others will come with their eyes closed, come to the white throne, and they won't know what's going to happen. But that doesn't mean I don't think it'll be just. I think it'll be just. People who deserve to live will live. And people who deserve to die will die. And in that there's a mercy in it, because why should the wicked be tormented forever with everlasting life? Because it would be a torment to them. Because their torment will live on forever and ever and ever. Because of what we extract from the wicked, they have a purpose. We're supposed to watch them. How it says this is what the wicked do. I was like, boy, I don't want to be the wicked. Not just because God's going to punish me, but because my life's going to be harder. My David Wood, after he brained his dad, ended up in prison, and he tried to play his tough guy thing there, and they pretty soon taught him that they can do whatever they want to you in there. You're helpless. You've given up your freedom. You thought you could just get away with whatever in the world. Nope. There's something to pay. Go thy way and eat thy bread with joy, and drink wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. I think that's taking reassurance that whatever you do, if you do the right thing, that your works are with God, and that somehow enjoy it, because that's all you can do right now, and also enjoy it on another deeper level in the thought that, like, hey, if there is a judgment, if God is just, which I believe he is, which I believe there is, then it's all going to be all right. All things will work together for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. It's going to work out that way. And so let us walk as those who are called according to his purpose. And we know how they walk. It says so in the Bible. It tells you exactly what to do. Let thy garments always be white, and thy head lack no ointment. Do not necessarily withhold yourself. I like to wear clean clothes and take a shower every day, even though for a while I didn't. I even used to joke about it. But it does feel good. It makes me feel fresh to get going and get washed off with water, okay? In a literal sense. But also in a spiritual sense, keep yourself clean. Keep yourself clean from the spots of this world, from being corrupted by it, by being seduced by the lie that nothing you do matters, that God's not going to judge the world, and let the madness of the world take hold of you. This is all we get. We better grab everything we can. I need to get all the whores I can. I need to get all the money I can. I need to get all the toys I can. I need to get it all now and enjoy it all now because I'm going to be dead. So screw you. I don't care. I want mine. We don't need more people like that. Okay? We need less people like that. Less attitude like that. Okay? I'll take the people like that if we can convert your attitude. Then you could be acceptable. Live joyfully with the wife. Let your garments be white. Stay clean. Keep it up and up. Let the head lack no. Be anointed. Be the true Christian. Let the true anointing be upon you. Be blessed of God. Take every blessing that Jesus promised and claim it, not just verbally, but by doing it. You want to be blessed. Blessed are those that hunger and thirst after righteousness. So hunger and thirst after righteousness, and you will be blessed. You will be filled. You want the blessing? Take the blessing. Don't miss out on even one of them. Do not let yourself come short of even one of God's promises. And be rich. The poor in spirit inherit the kingdom of heaven. The most richest thing you could have. Why bother with the feeble riches that people covet after, which are not riches at all? Just like they hunger and thirst after things that are not bread. And things that are not drink. They don't quench your thirst. They don't satisfy your hunger. These things of this life will never satisfy. They will never bring you true peace. They can alleviate the sufferings of this world at times. Remember, money is a defense. There's uses for it. There's no doubt. But people who learn to suffer without things sometimes end up happier anyways. because I can learn to live without. I've lived in poverty. I raised my kids on on incomes that make people say, no way. Okay? I did it with so little. You know what I mean? It's like, and so from my perspective, it's like there's no, like, I've been like dealing with this fraud that was perpetrated on me through this solar company, you know? And they've been calling me, and I've been starting to tell them, like, you don't understand. It's like, sir, we may turn off your solar panels. I'm like, they aren't on. Aren't you listening? They're not on. They don't work. Well, sir, you have this loan. You fraudulently induced me into it. I said there was a point to that. I'm ready. Like, it may affect your credit rating. I'm ready to be bankrupt. I'm ready to be emptied. I'm ready to be in big trouble. Ooh, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Ooh, ooh. So scared of the things you fear. Oh, I'll be broke again. I'm already broke. I'm worse than that. What are you going to tell me now? Sir, it's like, no. You understand? You can't hurt me. You can try. Let her have black no ointment. Don't go through life miserable, folks. Don't seek after that which doesn't satisfy. Seek true pleasures. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity. It's lovely to have a wife that you love. Solomon, he knows sometimes that happens for people. They find love. He didn't. He couldn't find a woman in 1,000. And after that, you got to stop looking. But as far as like, gets to be a bit unseemly, especially the way he was marrying each of them. I'll take her, sure. It's like, and then he finds out, oh, what a piece of work. Gosh, can I get another wife? And then, when you're having women thrown at you, and it's possible, men do what they do. If they could have more wives, many men would choose to do so. When I was young and foolish, I might have chosen to do so. As an older person, I know it's like one woman is quite enough. They're not easy to handle. Even my wife, who is easy, because she's atypical in many ways. Not as mysteriously emotional. She's emotional, but in a way that seems normal to me. Not in the way some women are emotional. Except when she used to have PMS, occasionally she would become more like unusually emotional, which was almost non-existent. And even that was much less than the joke. They joke about women and their PMS. It's very subtle. Very subtle. Nice woman to be married to. Live joyfully with your wife. It's one of the best things in life. Have a nice girl to be married to. I agree. But it's still a vain life. And that isn't even part of God's kingdom in the end. A wife. The husband-wife relationship is a metaphor for our relationship with God, ultimately. And there's a sort of a physical thing, too. It's not about sex. It's about becoming... the resurrection is that new birth, and and the seed planting is when we receive the word. The intercourse. He comes in, and then we have intercourse of, just like conversation, similarly, but it's a metaphor. Anyways, the husband, wife, bride thing is a metaphor. It's not literal, but it is a metaphor, and it is an intimate relationship. People get, because people are sensitive about homosexuality. The idea of like intimate male relationships that are based on love and understanding that don't include sex, that are pure and celibate, they somehow read something into that. You understand how nice it is to have relationships that aren't sexually charged. That's the thing that gets me is like, people are so perverted, they assume that everyone else is just as perverted as they are. Now, I was never like that. I was always assumed that other people were better than me. Because I always had a negative opinion of myself. And also the Lord taught me to think of what is in my eye as a beam versus what is in yours is as a speck. Your problems are little, mine are big. Because I can't help you until I've solved my personal moral issues. the flaws in my character that really matter. Anyways, I don't know. I was still adding something, but it's time to be finished. Live joyfully with her. All the days of life which he hath given you under the sun, all the days of your vanity. For that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor, which thou takest under the sun. So like I said, the best I like sex, but the best aspect of my marriage is that we get along, and the other relationship we have outside of that. And it would, if I had no urges in me, like I had a new body, I would be happy to leave all that behind. Because it's whatever. It's something almost unexplicable. It's animal. It's very animal. Like a lot of our passions are animal. Like some rutting deer or rutting pig. It's like, it's that's just the way it is. And it's not part of God's kingdom ultimately. But within it, there's a metaphor of the beauty of it. Because just like in all the parables where he talked about there being a wedding feast and such, it is a marriage. So it's a beautiful thing. Anyways, that's going to have to do it for today. Thank you for joining me. We look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, remember that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law.
You've heard that it was said to them of ancient times, thou shalt not perjure thyself, but shalt perform to the Lord thine oath. But I say to you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for his is footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these